My mom asked me to do a couple projects for her, and of course I'm not allowed to say no. I mean, of course I said yes. Mostly decorative items, maybe you get some inspiration out of that. The first one starts with this piece here, and she asked for that like only 4 or 5 months ago. I don't understand why she starts complaining. On there she wants this acrylic pipe mounted. I have no idea where she got that. And then there will be a light chain wrapped around it. And in the front there should be this piece of driftwood. First out of business here is flattening this on both sides. First of all, removing the dirt. I'm doing the flattening with the CNC router because that's the simplest method for me. It's rocking a bit, but 2 shims should fix that. I don't have any clamps for clamping from the side at the moment, but since this piece is so heavy, I just built a perimeter where it can't move side to side or front to back. And the surfacing bit is not trying to pull it up, so this should work just fine.
I also wanted to try something out here, which is not making a program for flattening, but instead move the machine manually with the hand wheel. And that totally works. I thought I could save some time with that, because then I don't have to make the program. And in theory that is true, but it depends on how much material you have to remove. If you have to make more than one pass, it's worth making a program.
Clamping on the second side is a bit simpler because I can kind of clamp on the angled surface here. And I also made a program this time because it turned out that with the hand wheel and this large surface, it's worth making a program and save some time. Flattening is done. Next I need a cutout to insert the pipe into, and it has 100mm diameter and 2.5mm wall thickness. I don't have a router bit that small, but that's not a problem. If I use a bigger one, I have room on the inside for some glue squeeze out. So I did a test piece here, and it already fits pretty good. That was with a 4mm bit, so now I can do this on this piece. And it fits. I asked the boss again, and the driftwood should be mounted about here. To mount it, I think I'll cut a tenon on the end, but therefore I need to cut this part off because that's too thin for making a tenon out of it. If I look at that, I think a 22mm big tenon should be possible. The best tool to cut a round tenon on the end of such an odd shaped piece is the panther router. I clamped a piece of wood as good as possible on the table, and for the template I just used something that was laying around and is round, in this case a router guide bushing. So let's try this. .1, that's a bit too big. But I only need to adjust the conical follower a bit, and then it will cut a smaller tenon. Okay, and now it fits the test hole. Unfortunately, the tenon didn't quite end up at the optimal location, but I think it's still okay. And now she also wants this giant cone attached right about here. And this will be difficult. I want to try gluing it on with an 8mm dowel, but drilling an 8mm hole in here is quite risky. 8mm brad point drill bit, here goes nothing. It worked! that was surprisingly easy. Okay, common problem with dowels, they never have the size they should have, so try making it a bit smaller in the front here. It's a bit crooked in there, but if I drill the other hole a bit crooked as well, nobody will notice. This angle should be correct. I would say that's good. For now, that's it with the first project. Before I sand and finish it, I will do the other ones and then finish everything at once. The next thing she asked me to do is to cut off a slice from this mini log and remove all that knot section, and then also flatten it on both sides. And as you can see, this is so tall, my bandsaw can just handle that. I set this up on my workbench, so this face is kind of square to the bench, and this clamp will prevent it from rotating during the cutting. There's also another problem. As you can see, this part here will hit this cover, so I have to remove that. It's not the first time that I've used this saw opened like this, but it's always a bit strange and scary having this insanely fast spinning wheel directly in front of your face. Well, it's always like that, but when the cover is on, it's a totally different feeling. But that was a really nice cut. All things considered, this went great and also came out very flat. With it being flattened, it's already done because there will stand something on top of there and there will also be something around here. So yeah, it's done. The third thing is also quite simple. It's one of these contraptions here. And she wants me to just cut off the screw holes at the ends, give it a sanding and a finish, and then it's done.
And while I was at the saw, I also cut off the ends of the first big piece.
On this piece I taped off the holes before finishing, so the glue will still properly stick. While it's drying for a bit, this one should be glued in like so. This dowel doesn't need to be quite as long, so I'm shortening it a little bit. But now I have to remove the burr again. The pipe actually fits so well that I don't even need to glue it in place, and it doesn't need to hold anything. So this will be perfectly fine. For the light chain, it will actually not be wrapped around the pipe, but instead sit inside the pipe. And to hold the battery box in place on the top, my dad 3D printed this cap where this can snap into, and this just fits nicely on the top. Of course, the label still has to be removed. Since it's a rather simple light chain to turn it on, you have to remove the cap, turn it on, put it back in place. I don't think that's a big problem. And this is then how it looks with a bit less surrounding light. Pretty cool, but I think in real life it looks a lot better than in the video. And with that now, that first little project is done. The second little project my mom already finished on her own and turned it into this here. It also has a light in it and will be outside. The light has a little Solar panel built in and will charge during the day and then light up at night. Like this. And the idea then here is that it makes some nice shadows, but this doesn't work in here. Also, pretty cool idea. The third project is also already done, but that's really simple. It just sits there and holds some books. And that basically wraps up the few mom projects. She really likes them and I hope you could get some inspiration out of that. One note, you definitely don't need a CNC router to flatten pieces. It was just a lot simpler for me. But you can totally do it with a handheld router and a jig. I also have made a video about such a jig, which you can watch right here. And that's basically it. Have a good day.